Hey, this is a tutorial video, just as kind of a reminder of the first lesson that I give where I introduce the triad scale and the idea of the number system. So, first thing that we're going to do, first thing that we typically do with this lesson is we do what I call the triad scale. So remember that a triad is called a triad because it is made up of three parts. It's a chord with three notes in it, like think triangle, tricycle. And they're actually all a third apart. That's another reason that it's called a triad. Every triad is going to be the same like hand shape. So your root position triad basically looks like this in your hand. It's pretty much always going to look like this. If 1, 3, and 5 is a little bit too much of a struggle, that's okay. You can do 1, 2, and 4 as well. Those are both options. I do like to kind of stay away from this one because I just think it develops the fingers in a strange way. So either 1, 3, and 5 or 1, 2, and 4, totally fine. So for the triad scale, what we're going to do is we're just going to move this up. We're going to go all the way up until our thumb in the right hand is on C again, just like this. You don't really have to worry about the rhythm at all. It's just kind of more about keeping your hands in that shape as you move around with that. So then the first chord progression I teach is what I would call a 1 5 6 4, and that's just derived from the fact that this triad scale, so something I usually talk about much later. This triad scale forms the basis of all the chords that are available to you anytime that you're playing in any piece, in any key, doesn't matter. You have 7 chords available to you in some way, shape, or form, and they're just referred to as numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right. So you can talk about chord progressions as being numbers. One of the most common chord progressions that we have in American popular music is the 1 5 6 4. You don't need to know what any of that means, but what you do need to know is how it goes. So we're going to think about thumb on C, and then we're going to move down to thumb on G, which would be the 5 chord, thumb on A, and then thumb on F. Right on. So at first, just get used to that. Remember that jump there from C to G is pretty hard. Feel free to practice that multiple times like this. Just kind of getting used to that biggest jump. The other ones are pretty easy to kind of move because they're pretty close to one another. Once you're feeling pretty comfortable with the right hand moving that shape around like that, once again, out of rhythm. I'm not worried about the rhythm right now. You can add the root notes in the left hand. Single notes that just correspond to where your thumb is in the right hand. Just feel free to do that once or twice on your own, on its own, and then we'll add them together. Same kind of thing. Any chords that are tough to transition between, just practice those by themselves if you're struggling with that. So maybe C to G is hard, so you do C to G a few times, whatever. Maybe A to F is hard, same thing. Once you get comfortable with that, once again, kind of arrhythmically, then we're going to start to turn the heat up. We're going to start to add some rhythm to this. So you're going to do a 4-to-1 ratio. If you're hip to this kind of lingo, it's 4 quarter notes in the right hand and 1 whole note in the left hand. So you're going to go like this. At whatever tempo feels good. Now, the very first time you do that, you're probably not going to be able to transition between the chords that quickly. It's probably going to be something like this. Totally fine. No problems at all. Obviously, our goal is to slowly get to the point where there's not any gap at all between those chord changes. So that's really it. That's the first lesson, is just getting used to doing that. And once you get used to that, that forms the basis of pretty much all the techniques that I end up teaching later on. Like the seesaw is just the same thing. We just break the chord up into 2 parts. You can do like arpeggios, and then there's different voicings and stuff. But for the beginning, you're just moving this chord progression around. Right on. Happy practicing.